9:22 a.m. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrowest transit point. 20 miles of open water between the Iranian coast and the Omani shoreline. The sky already a flat, hard white from the morning heat, visibility unlimited in every direction across the glittering surface of the Gulf. The temperature was climbing past 97 degrees before 10 in the morning, the kind of heat that made the air above the water shimmer and turned distant vessels into distorted mirages floating above the horizon. 3 U.S. Navy vessels were transiting northbound through the traffic separation scheme. Coastal patrol ships, USS Firebolt, USS Whirlwind, and USS Thunderbolt, each roughly 50 meters long, lightly armed with 25mm chain guns and .50 caliber mounts crewed by 15 sailors apiece. 45 total personnel. They were transiting from the Gulf of Oman toward Bahrain on a standard logistics and personnel rotation run, a route that had been completed hundreds of times without incident. Their commanding officers were experienced, their crews were trained, and the morning was routine in every observable dimension. It did not stay routine. At 9:22 a.m., from 3 separate vectors simultaneously, northwest, north, and northeast, 18 IRGC Navy fast attack craft emerged from the haze at high speed. Each vessel was armed with heavy machine guns, RPG launchers, and at least 2 craft-mounted recoilless rifles at their bows. They closed the distance to the 3 American patrol ships in under 3 minutes, forming overlapping engagement rings that left zero avenue of maneuver. Simultaneously, 2 IRGC Navy missile boats positioned themselves at longer range to the northwest, their Noor anti-ship missiles targeted and ready, a visual signal of consequence to any commanding officer who considered resistance. The lead IRGC commander broadcast on international distress frequency in accented English. The message was brief and unambiguous. The 3 American vessels had violated Iranian territorial waters. Their crews were to lower all weapons, heave to, and prepare for boarding. Non-compliance would be treated as an act of aggression with immediate consequences. The American commanding officers assessed the situation with the cold clarity of professional naval officers who understood what 18 armed fast craft at close range plus 2 missile boats in overwatch meant for 45 unarmed or lightly armed sailors in 3 small patrol ships. They complied. Weapons placed on decks. Engines stopped. Hands visible. The IRGC boarding teams came across at 9:31 a.m. 45 American sailors in the hands of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, their vessels under Iranian control, engines restarted and moving northeast under IRGC direction toward the port of Bandar Abbas. Flight time to IRGC territorial control. Approximately 90 minutes at the speed the convoy was being moved. In Tehran, the Supreme National Security Council was already assembled. The operation had been planned for 3 months. The seizure of American military personnel, not civilian mariners, not a commercial vessel, but uniformed U.S. Navy sailors in U.S. Navy ships, was designed to produce a crisis of the highest political magnitude. The images that Iranian state television was already preparing to broadcast. 45 American sailors in custody, their vessels flying Iranian flags, docked at an IRGC naval facility. The leverage would be total. Washington would be forced to negotiate for the release of its own military personnel. Negotiate from a position of demonstrated helplessness in the strait that carried 40% of the world's seaborne oil. The Supreme Leader's advisors had calculated the American response window at a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of diplomatic consultations, interagency coordination, and political deliberation before any military option could be considered. In that window, the sailors would be ashore, inside Iranian territory, photographed, processed, and secured behind the walls of an IRGC facility in Bandar Abbas. At that point, military recovery would carry risks that no American administration could politically accept. 6 to 8 hours. That was the assumption. The IRGC had made 6 catastrophic mistakes. The first mistake: The operations planning communications had been monitored by NSA collection assets for 61 days. The specific frequency, the coded language, and the operational timing had been partially reconstructed by signals intelligence analysts at Fort Meade 3 weeks before the seizure. The Naval Intelligence Assessment had reached probable for a Gulf seizure operation involving American patrol vessels 9 days earlier. 5th Fleet headquarters at Bahrain had been on elevated readiness since that assessment. Response assets had been pre-positioned. A response package had been pre-authorized. When the IRGC Fastcraft closed on USS Firebolt at 9:22 a.m., the duty officer at 5th Fleet did not convene an emergency meeting. He executed a response order that had been sitting in the system for 9 days. The second mistake. The 90-minute transit to Bandar Abbas was not 90 minutes of safety. It was 90 minutes of exposure on open water with no air cover, no radar coverage beyond their own vessel systems, and no early warning against aircraft approaching at low altitude from the south. The IRGC Navy commander had planned for the possibility of American naval surface response, hence the 2 missile boats in overwatch. He had not adequately planned for the possibility of American air power arriving from a direction and at a timeline that his surface force could not intercept or evade. The third mistake. The 18 fast attack craft that had executed the seizure were now dispersed across a wide area of the strait, some escorting the 3 American vessels northeast, others returning to their patrol stations. They were not concentrated. They were not in a defensible formation. They were scattered across 20 miles of open water, each vessel isolated, each within individual visual range of the American patrol ships, but not within mutual support range of each other. A dispersed force of small vessels in open water is not a defensible position. It is a targeting list. The fourth mistake. The 2 IRGC missile boats providing overwatch had positioned themselves northwest of the convoy to deter any American surface response coming from the direction of Bahrain. They had not considered an air-delivered response from the south, from assets that had been pre-positioned on the Omani side of the strait in anticipation of exactly this contingency. The missile boats' NOR targeting systems were oriented northwest. They could not engage threats from the south without a full repositioning maneuver that would take 11 to 14 minutes. The fifth mistake. In the immediate aftermath of the seizure, the IRGC command transmitted a detailed status report on the operation's success through their encrypted command network, confirming the number of American personnel in custody, the vessel positions, the transit route, and the estimated arrival time at Bandar Abbas. That transmission was intercepted and partially decoded within 4 minutes by NSA collection platforms orbiting at altitude above the Gulf. It provided 5th Fleet with a precise update on the convoy's current position, heading, speed, and the distribution of IRGC escort vessels around the captured Americans. Not an estimate, a precise picture. The sixth mistake, the one that made every other calculation irrelevant, was the assumption that the window before the sailors reached Iranian territory was a window of American paralysis. It was not. It was the window that 5th Fleet's pre-planned response had been specifically designed to operate within. The response was not designed to begin after diplomatic consultations failed. It was designed to execute immediately within the window, before the convoy reached Bandar Abbas. The pre-authorization was already granted. The assets were already positioned. The only question had been confirmation that the seizure had occurred. Confirmation arrived at 9:24 a.m., 2 minutes after the first IRGC craft made contact. The execute order was transmitted from 5th Fleet at 9:26 a.m., 4 minutes after the seizure began. What happened in the next 51 minutes was the most precise non-combatant recovery and maritime strike operation ever executed in the Strait of Hormuz. At 9:26 a.m., 4 FA-18 Super Hornets from USS Carl Vinson, which had been operating in the Gulf of Oman in Emkin posture, her position unknown to IRGC intelligence, were already on the catapults at Combat Alert 5. They were airborne by 9:28 a.m., climbing northwest at military power. their pilots already briefed on the convoy's last known position from the NSA intercept data. Their mission was not strike. Their mission was combat air patrol, establishing American air superiority over the entire Strait of Hormuz, denying any IRGC air asset the ability to interfere with what was coming next. At 9:29 a.m., from a forward staging position at Thumb Raid Air Base in Oman, where they had been pre-positioned 48 hours earlier under the cover of a bilateral exercise notification, 6 U.S. Air Force F-35A Lightning IIs were airborne on afterburner, turning north-northwest toward the strait. Their stealth profiles made them invisible to every IRGC radar installation along the Iranian coast. They carried a specific weapons load: 4 AGM-65 Maverick air-to-ground missiles each for precision engagement of fast attack craft, and 2 AGM-84H Slammer standoff weapons each for the missile boats, plus full internal gun for close-range vessel engagement if required by ROE. At 9:31 a.m., the same moment the IRGC boarding teams were crossing onto the 3 American vessels, a SEAL team platoon of 16 operators had already been airborne for 19 minutes, in 2 MH-60M Blackhawks of the 160 the SOAR having launched from a classified forward staging position at Al Musanna Air Base in Oman at 9:12 a.m., the moment the Elevated Readiness Watch had assessed the seizure as imminent based on the IRGC communication intercepts. The MH-60Ms were running low, fast, and dark across the Gulf of Oman, staying below the radar coverage of the IRGC coastal installations, their approach vector taking them directly to the projected position of the 3 American patrol ships based on the transit route the NSA intercept had confirmed. The F-35 has reached the strait at 9:43 a.m. They arrived at 15,000 feet, invisible on every IRGC radar screen. Their targeting systems acquired the full tactical picture within seconds. The 3 American patrol ships moving northeast under IRGC escort, the 18 fast attack craft in their dispersed escort pattern, the 2 missile boats holding position to the northwest. The F-35A's sensor fusion systems were building target solutions for every IRGC vessel within seconds of arrival, correlating their positions against the NSA-derived picture to confirm which vessels were escorts and, critically, to identify the exact vessels in closest proximity to the 3 American patrol ships to ensure precision in the initial strikes. At 9:44 a.m., the lead F-35A pilot transmitted a warning broadcast on the IRGC guard frequency in Farsi via a pre-recorded message that had been prepared for exactly this contingency. All IRGC vessels were ordered to stand clear of the American patrol ships immediately. Non-compliance would result in engagement. The IRGC tactical commander aboard the lead escort craft had 11 seconds to process what was happening before the first AGM-65 Maverick impacted. The 2 IRGC missile boats to the northwest were the highest priority threats, the only IRGC assets capable of threatening the American patrol ships at range. Both were engaged simultaneously by Slammer missiles at 9:44 a.m. and 30 seconds, before their crews could complete the repositioning maneuver required to bring their NOR targeting systems to bear on southern threats. Both missile boats sustained direct impacts. Both were rendered inoperable within 9 seconds of each other, their NOR missiles and fuel stores producing significant secondary detonations that were visible from the American patrol ships 11 miles distant. The fast attack craft were engaged in carefully sequenced Maverick strikes that prioritized the vessels in immediate proximity to the 3 American patrol ships, working outward. The ROE for the engagement had been crafted specifically to preserve the safety of the 45 American sailors aboard the captured vessels. No strike within 500 meters of the patrol ships until the SEAL team was aboard and the sailors were confirmed secure. The outer ring of IRGC escort craft, operating at ranges of 800 meters to 2 miles from the convoy, were engaged first. In 4 minutes and 19 seconds of continuous F-35A engagement, 14 of the 18 IRGC fast attack craft had sustained direct Maverick impacts and been rendered inoperable or removed from the battle space. The remaining 4, those in the immediate proximity corridor around the American patrol ships, within the 500-meter exclusion zone, held their positions. Their crews had seen what happened to the outer ring. 2 of the 4 began moving away from the American vessels. At 9:48 a.m., exactly 19 minutes after launching from Al-Musanna, the 2 MH-60Ms arrived over the convoy. They had been invisible on their low-altitude approach, appearing suddenly from the south at 50 feet above the water surface, closing on the convoy at 150 knots. The IRGC crew aboard the lead escort craft adjacent to USS Firebolt was the first to see them. They had approximately 4 seconds to react before the 16 SEAL operators fast roped to the decks of the 3 American patrol ships in a simultaneous insertion across all 3 vessels. The SEAL team's action aboard the vessels was precise, rapid, and professionally executed. The IRGC boarding party personnel, 6 per vessel, 18 total across all 3 ships, were on the main decks and bridges. They were armed. They were not, however, expecting 16 naval special warfare operators arriving from 50-foot fast ropes in the first seconds of a coordinated multi-vessel assault. The engagement aboard all 3 vessels was concluded within 4 minutes and 11 seconds of the first SEAL operator's boots hitting the deck. All 18 IRGC boarding party personnel were secured. All 45 American sailors were confirmed unharmed. The senior SEAL team officer transmitted the recovery confirmation at 9:52 a.m. and 44 seconds. All personnel secure. All vessels under U.S. control. At 9:53 a.m., with the American sailors confirmed secure and the SEAL teams controlling all 3 vessels, the F-35As received clearance to engage the 4 remaining IRGC fast attack craft within the 500-meter exclusion zone. The 2 that had been moving away from the convoy had increased their distance to 900 meters. All 4 were engaged. All 4 were rendered inoperable within 67 seconds. 18 IRGC fast attack craft had escorted the convoy. 18 were now inoperable or removed from the battle space. Both missile boats, inoperable. The Strait of Hormuz, through which the convoy had been transiting, was now clear of every IRGC Navy vessel that had participated in the seizure. The retaliation package executing simultaneously with the recovery operation was targeting the IRGC Navy infrastructure that had generated the threat. From Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, 8 additional F-35As had launched at 9:31 a.m., carrying JASSM-ER cruise missiles. Their targets: the IRGC naval base at Bandar Abbas, specifically the fast attack craft pier complex from which the 18 vessels had staged, the IRGC Navy headquarters building at Bandar Abbas, and the missile boat maintenance and storage facility adjacent to the main pier. These were the facilities that had enabled the seizure. They were about to be rendered inoperable. The JASSM-ERs reached Bandar Abbas at 10:09 a.m. 16 missiles struck the fast attack craft pier complex in a sequenced strike pattern that collapsed the pier structures, the berthing infrastructure, and the boat maintenance sheds housing the reserve craft not deployed on the seizure operation. 12 additional JASSM-ERs struck the IRGC Navy headquarters building and the missile boat facility in a simultaneous 4-second impact window that resulted in total structural collapse of both facilities. From USS Carl Vinson, 12 FA-18, Super Hornets launched at 9:44 a.m., carrying AGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles. Their targets were the IRGC's 3 remaining Muj-class frigates based at Bandar Abbas, the surface combatants that represented the IRGC Navy's most capable remaining assets, following the fast attack craft losses in the Strait. The frigates were at pier when the Harpoons arrived at 10:14 a.m. 3 frigates. 36 Harpoon impacts distributed across the 3 vessels in a time-on-target sequence. All 3 frigates removed from the battle space at pier. None had time to get underway. From a battery of M270 MLRS launchers pre-positioned at a classified forward site in the UAE, part of the pre-authorized response package that had been assembled 9 days earlier. 16 ATACMS missiles struck the IRGC Aerospace Force's coastal defense radar network along the Iranian shore of the Strait of Hormuz at 9:58 a.m. 4 radar installations. 4 installations that had provided the IRGC Navy with maritime surveillance coverage of the strait and targeting data for their NOR missiles. All 4 rendered permanently inoperable in a strike window of 42 seconds. Without radar coverage, the strait's northern shore was blind. By 10:19 a.m., 53 minutes after the first IRGC fast craft made contact with USS Firebolt, the response package was complete. The final accounting was comprehensive. IRGC Navy assets removed from the battle space or rendered inoperable in the Strait of Hormuz engagement. 18 fast attack craft, 2 NOR missile boats, 20 vessels total. IRGC Navy assets rendered inoperable at Bandar Abbas. 3 MH-class frigates at pier, the fast attack craft pier complex, the IRGC Navy headquarters facility, the missile boat maintenance facility. IRGC coastal radar installations rendered inoperable, 4. Total IRGC Navy installations and assets neutralized, 29, across 2 separate operational zones in 53 minutes. 18 IRGC boarding party personnel secured aboard the 3 American patrol ships and transferred to U.S. Navy custody. All 18 processed under international law provisions and transferred to Omani Coast Guard custody at Muscat on the following day. American sailors in IRGC custody at any point, 45. Time in IRGC custody, 26 minutes and 44 seconds. From the moment the first boarding party personnel crossed onto USS Firebolt to the moment the SEAL team recovery confirmation was transmitted. American sailors recovered unharmed, 45. American sailors having sustained any injury, 0. American aircraft lost, 0. All F-35As returned to Thumb Rate and Al Udeid. All FA-18S recovered aboard USS Carl Vinson by 1:30 p.m. Both MH-60Ms returned to Al Musana. American service members having sustained any injury in the entire operation, 0. The 3 patrol ships, USS Firebolt, USS Whirlwind, USS Thunderbolt, were escorted by the F-35 ACAP package to Muscat Harbor, where they were received by 5th Fleet liaison personnel. Their crews were assessed by medical personnel and cleared within 2 hours. All 45 were in contact with their families by 1 p.m. They returned to Bahrain aboard a C-17 transport the following morning. In Tehran, the state television broadcast that had been prepared to show 45 American sailors in IRGC custody, the images that were supposed to announce a historic demonstration of Iranian sovereign power over the Strait of Hormuz, was never aired. The footage did not exist. The sailors had been in IRGC custody for 26 minutes and 44 seconds before the SEAL teams arrived. No photography had been taken. No statement had been extracted. No propaganda value had been generated. What existed and what was released by CENTCOM at 2 p.m. that day was satellite imagery of the Bandar Abbas IRGC naval facility, the collapsed pier complex, the structural remains of the headquarters building, the 3 frigates on their sides at their moorings, and radar track data showing 20 IRGC vessels entering their engagement with the U.S. patrol ships and 0 IRGC vessels departing it under their own power. The Supreme National Security Council convened at noon. The 6 to 8 hour response window they had calculated had produced a response in 4 minutes and the complete neutralization of the IRGC Navy's Persian Gulf surface force in 53. The seizure operation that had been designed to demonstrate Iranian power had demonstrated, with precise and unambiguous clarity, its opposite. A unilateral ceasefire was announced at 4 p.m. The Strait of Hormuz was open. The tankers were moving. The 3 American patrol ships were in Muscat Harbor with their crews intact. This is what happens when you calculate that seizing 45 military personnel in international waters will produce 6 hours of American indecision. This is what happens when you move 18 fast attack craft and 2 missile boats into international waters to hold U.S. Navy sailors at gunpoint and believe that the silence on your radar screens means that nothing is coming. The silence on your radar screen is not absence. It is the F-35 you cannot see, already overhead, already building solutions, already waiting for the order that was pre-authorized 9 days ago. The strait is open. The 45 sailors are home. It took 53 minutes.